Have you ever met someone who walked into a room and somehow everyone noticed them? Not because they were louder, not because they were more attractive. There was just something about them. People listened more carefully, paid more attention, remembered them. And honestly, that kind of presence feels almost unfair sometimes. Hello, and welcome back to Bookworm. Today we're diving into The Charisma Myth, a book that explains something fascinating. Charisma is not magic, and it's not something people are simply born with. It's behavior, small signals, attention, confidence, presence. And once you understand those signals, you start noticing why certain people naturally pull others toward them. This book breaks down the psychology behind influence, confidence, and social presence in a surprisingly practical way. Stay with me as we dive deeper, because after this, you may start seeing charisma completely differently. And if you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Okay, so let's talk about charisma. You know that magnetic pull some people just seem to have? The kind that makes you hang on their every word? Well, welcome to this explainer, where we're going to completely dismantle the idea that charisma is just some innate genetic trait that you're either born with or you're not. I'm absolutely thrilled you're here today, because we're going to look really closely at some fascinating research and some pretty wild historical anecdotes that prove personal magnetism isn't magic at all. It's actually a highly specific, learnable science, and we're going to give you the exact toolkit to master. So let's dive right into this by challenging some of our biggest limiting beliefs. Because look, when we see incredibly magnetic people, we naturally tend to think, oh, they were just born that way. We assume they have this magical aura that the rest of us simply lack. But actually, scratch that. Think about famously magnetic figures like Steve Jobs. He's widely considered one of the most charismatic CEOs of our time, right? But he started out with some extremely awkward early presentations. Seriously, if you look at his earliest appearances, he was bashful, he was sometimes way too overly dramatic, and just downright nerdy. He definitely didn't have it all figured out from day one. He progressively built up his level of charisma over the years by learning and refining very specific behaviors.
And there's this really famous story from 1955 that perfectly captures how this works in real time. So picture this. It's a sunny summer day, and Marilyn Monroe wants to prove a point to a magazine editor and a photographer she's with. She rides a totally crowded New York subway train, completely unnoticed. She was just Norma Jean Baker, quietly sitting in the corner, and literally not a single person recognized her. But the moment she goes above ground onto the busy sidewalks, she decides she's going to turn into Marilyn. And the crazy thing is, she didn't make a grand spectacle. She didn't shout, she simply shifted her body language, fluffed her hair, and struck a pose. And suddenly, it was like this aura of magic just rippled out. People stopped dead in their tracks, time kind of stood still, and within minutes, she was engulfed by this amazed crowd. It was entirely a choice of nonverbal behavior. How wild is that?
So, here is our roadmap for unlocking this social superpower over the next few minutes. We're going to start by fully shattering the charisma myth. Then, we'll break down the core triad of presence, power, and warmth. After that, we'll tackle conquering the inner critic, which is absolutely crucial, before mastering charismatic body language, and finally choosing the specific charisma style that works best for you. Let's get into it. Section 1. Shattering the charisma myth. First things first, we really have to understand that charisma is simply a choice of specific behaviors that make other people feel a certain way. Now, what's really interesting about Olivia Fox Cabane's research is that it reveals a massive truth. You do not have to be naturally extroverted or classically attractive to be charismatic. And this is huge, because Western society puts a massive premium on extroversion, right? It makes introverts feel like they're just naturally at a disadvantage. But the research actually shows introverts can be wildly charismatic. Furthermore, look at countless charismatic figures throughout history, like Winston Churchill. He wasn't exactly considered conventionally attractive. But here's the kicker. When you learn the behavioral science and adopt specific nonverbal cues, participants in controlled laboratory experiments were actually rated as significantly more attractive than they were before. It turns out your charisma elevates your physical presence, not the other way around. And this crucial point is perfectly captured in his brilliant anecdote from the 1886 election in the UK. So William Gladstone and Benjamin Disraeli were vying for the post of Prime Minister. In the week before the election, both of these men happened to take the same young woman out to dinner on different nights. When she was later asked about her impressions, her response was legendary. She said, "After dining with Mr. Gladstone, I thought he was the cleverest person in England. But after dining with Mr. Disraeli, I thought I was the cleverest person in England."
See what happened there? Gladstone projected immense power and intelligence, sure, but he completely lacked the warmth to make his companion feel special. Disraeli, on the other hand, projected both power and warmth. He made the person he was speaking with feel brilliant and fascinating, and guess who ended up winning the election? Disraeli. Charisma is ultimately about how you make the other person feel.
Section 2. Presence, Power, and Warmth. Okay, next we need to explore the specific evolutionary framework that actually creates this personal magnetism.
So, what exactly was Disraeli doing at that dinner? He was perfectly balancing what we call the charismatic triad. From an evolutionary standpoint, you have to realize that our primal brains are constantly, and I mean constantly, evaluating others to answer two core survival questions. Number one, could you move mountains for me? And number two, would you actually care to do so? The first question assesses power. That's our fight or flight mechanism. We're looking at posture, authority, status. The second question assesses warmth, the friend or foe mechanism. We're scanning for goodwill, kindness, eye contact. If you have power without warmth, well, you just come across as arrogant or cold. If you have warmth without power, you seem overly eager, maybe even subservient. But when you combine them, it's literally magnetic. And the foundation that holds both of these up is presence. Think about it. If you aren't fully present, your eyes glaze over, your reactions are just a split-second delayed, and people intuitively feel brushed off. You absolutely must be fully in the moment.
Now, here's where it gets highly actionable. You can implement these 3 simple, screen-grabbable physical adjustments right now to project a highly grounded and charismatic presence. First, try dropping the intonation of your voice at the end of a sentence. It naturally projects vocal power and authority, rather than making everything sound like a question. Next, and this is a big one, stop the excessive nodding. We often overnod because we want to show we're listening and being polite, but doing it too fast or too often just makes us look restless and overly eager to please, which totally drains our power. Finally, just pause. Seriously, taking 2 full seconds before you speak shows incredible poise. 2 seconds can feel like a lifetime when you're in a conversation, but it tells the other person you are truly digesting what they said, which projects immense presence and confidence.
Section 3. Conquering the inner critic. However, before we can consistently execute those physical behaviors, we have to acknowledge the primary villain of our story.
You simply cannot fake charisma if your mind is incredibly anxious. Why? Because of microexpressions. The human mind can read facial expressions in as little as 17 milliseconds. Just think about that for a second. 17 milliseconds, that's incredibly fast. Without even realizing it, our bodies are sending out thousands of signals every single minute, totally controlled by our subconscious. So if you're sitting in a meeting feeling like an imposter, or you're agonizing over a mistake you just made, those underlying thoughts are going to flash across your face as a microexpression, and the person you are talking to will catch it on a gut level. And because they don't know why you just flashed a wince or a tense look, their gut is going to assume it's a reaction to them. This completely ruins your charisma in an instant.
So, to maintain the charismatic triad, we must actively manage our internal mental ecosystem. We have to accept discomfort and replace self-criticism with self-compassion. The first step here is to simply destigmatize your anxiety. Realize that it's literally just your brain's evolutionary fight-or-flight survival mechanism kicking in. It's totally normal. Second, you have to neutralize those negative thoughts. Understand that just because your brain is panicking, that doesn't mean your thoughts are accurate facts. And third, rewrite your reality. This one is fun. If someone is being really short with you, don't automatically assume they hate your ideas. Just imagine they're wearing a terribly itchy wool sweater, or maybe they just had an awful morning. By changing the narrative in your own head, you stop your own defensive microexpressions from firing.
And this actually leads us right into one of the most powerful internal tools you can possibly use. The placebo effect in charisma relies on this amazing fact that your mind literally cannot distinguish imagination from reality. If you close your eyes and visualize a moment of absolute triumph, your brain floods your body with the exact same confidence-boosting chemicals as if it were happening right this second. So by actively practicing gratitude and visualizing goodwill toward the people you are speaking with, I mean even literally imagining they have invisible angel wings and are rooting for you, you rewrite your internal reality. It sounds a little silly, but it effortlessly forces your subconscious to broadcast totally authentic warmth and confidence right through your body language.
Section 4. Mastering Body Language. Once we've conquered that inner critic and got our mental ecosystem in check, we can focus entirely on how our physical space projects immense power.
If you adopt what's sometimes called the big gorilla posture by taking up more physical space, you will literally change your body's biochemistry to radiate massive confidence.
Researchers at Harvard and Columbia proved this. They found that when subjects stood in expansive, powerful postures, it didn't just make them look more confident to the people observing them. It actually triggered a biochemical reaction that made them feel internally powerful. Think of a silverback gorilla protecting its territory, right? It inflates its chest, it pounds its fists to look huge. Now, you don't need to pound your chest in the boardroom, but when you need a surge of authority, just take up space. Plant your feet a bit wider. Drape your arm over the empty chair next to you. Take a deep breath. Your psychology will always follow your physiology.
And you know, this physical shift matters for literally everyone around you too, because of something called emotional contagion. This is the phenomenon where your emotions spread to others almost like a virus. Have you ever walked into a room and just felt the tension? That happens because of mirror neurons in our brains, which are evolutionarily designed to replicate the emotions we observe in someone else. So as a leader, if you walk into a room in a state of anxious tension, that feeling will instantly ripple through your entire team. Conversely, if you project a grounded, warm confidence, your team will literally catch your charisma. Your nonverbal communication is incredibly contagious.
Now, you can actually strategically use this biology to your advantage. You can establish deep rapport and make others highly comfortable through conscious, subtle mirroring. When you loosely imitate someone's body language, it triggers what's called limbic resonance, which is just a fancy term for a deep, instinctual feeling of trust and similarity. But listen, you have to be subtle, otherwise you look like a mime mocking them. Be selective. Don't copy every single thing they do. Use variations in amplitude, so if they make a huge, sweeping hand gesture, maybe you just make a smaller, contained one. And always use a lag time of a few seconds before you adopt their posture. Done right, it makes them feel deeply heard and understood on a purely biological level.
Section 5. Choosing your charisma style. Okay, let's bring this all together and see how these elements combine into 4 distinct styles of charisma.
Because honestly, there isn't just one way to be magnetic. You've got options. First, there's focused charisma, which is all about intense presence. It's making the other person feel like they are literally the only person in the world, just by listening deeply. Then you have visionary charisma, which relies on absolute conviction and belief in a bold idea. This is your classic Steve Jobs vibe. Then there's kindness charisma, which connects directly with people's hearts, offering total acceptance and warmth, much like the Dalai Lama. And finally, authority charisma. This relies on high status and power, commanding a room's attention like a top-tier CEO. The beautiful part is, whether you need the intense focus of a great listener, the compassionate warmth of a mentor, or the unyielding authority of a leader during a crisis, you can mix and match these tools. You just dial up your presence, your warmth, or your power to suit the specific environment you're in.
So since wielding this new toolkit completely shifts your responsibility in social interactions, I want to leave you with this final thought to apply in your everyday life. Charisma is no longer just a genetic lottery. It's not magic. It is a series of deliberate, mindful choices, from the way you handle your own inner critic to the actual physical space you take up in a room, all the way to those 2 quiet seconds you pause before answering a question. You possess the power to project presence, warmth, and authority at will. So the next time you walk into a room, who will you choose to be? Think about it. Test out these tools and just watch how the world reacts to you. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I really can't wait to share more incredible insights with you next time.
If there's one idea to take from this book, it's this. Charisma is not reserved for a special group of people. The charisma myth shows that what feels like natural charm is often a combination of behaviors and emotional signals, presence, confidence, warmth, and people react to those signals automatically. That's why some individuals instantly feel influential, even before they say much. But the most important part is this. Charisma isn't about pretending to be someone else. It's about becoming fully present and emotionally grounded, because people remember how you make them feel. And once you understand that, social interaction changes completely. If this made you rethink confidence and influence like the video, subscribe to Bookworm and stay aware, because sometimes the strongest presence in the room is also the quietest.